The man originally just raised his gun to aim at a deer, but he suddenly saw a twisted figure ahead. In that instant, he knew something was seriously wrong because it was said that this forest was home to bloodthirsty monsters. To survive, the father and son quickly hid behind a lookout tower. The man told his son not to make a sound under any circumstances, but soon, heavy footsteps could still be heard outside. He hurriedly aimed his gun toward the direction of the noise. He had been hunting for 20 years, and this was the first time he had ever encountered a monster, so fear was inevitable. The air was thick with tension and terror, as if the monster would break in the next second. He prepared to fight for his life. However, for some unknown reason, the monster suddenly turned and left. Only when everything outside was completely quiet did the man slowly stand up. As he looked around, he saw the wooden boards covered in claw marks. Even worse, the deer had already been gutted. He continued to watch carefully and caught a glimpse of the monster flashing past again. Although he didn't hit it, the growls gradually faded away. He finally let out a sigh of relief. His son curiously asked what it was, but the father didn't tell the truth and just said it was a black bear. He was afraid the truth would ruin his son's childhood. Little did he know, the monster would one day become a nightmare that his son could never forget. 30 years passed in a flash. The little boy Jack had grown into an adult. He had thought he could live in the city with his family, but his father's death forced him to return to the forest cabin with his wife and daughter. On the way up the mountain, Jack ran into a neighbor he hadn't seen in decades. When he learned the neighbor was also heading home, he offered a ride. Unexpectedly, an accident happened, but the car was stopped by a large tree and didn't fall off the cliff. The neighbor tried to leave first, but accidentally fell to the ground. Jack told his wife and daughter to crawl under the car for safety. At that moment, deep growls suddenly rang out. Through the rearview mirror, he saw the monster's shadow. Before he could react, a claw smashed the car window, and his arm was grabbed. The next second, the neighbor was dragged away by the monster. Jack realized they couldn't stay there any longer, so he climbed onto the car roof and rescued his wife and daughter. Luckily, the old house was nearby. The family ran desperately, and just before the monster caught up, they got inside the house. The monster followed closely, banging furiously on the door, and the family trembled with fear. Thankfully, Jack held the door shut, keeping the monster outside. Once everything outside was quiet, he went down to the basement, found his father's diesel generator, and turned on the lights. Although they were temporarily safe, Jack knew the danger wasn't over. He moved a wardrobe to the door to reinforce the defense. What he didn't realize was that the blood from his injured arm had already been infected with a strange virus. That night, his hair started falling out in clumps, and his vision gradually became blurry. Luckily, he could still recognize his wife's face, so he tried to control himself. But his wife noticed the blood on his arm, and when Jack smelled the blood, he suddenly lost control and bit his own wound. Seeing his wife's terrified face, the last bit of his reason returned, and he left without looking back. His wife realized the house was no longer safe, and that they needed to get Jack to a hospital immediately. She saw a car parked outside, so she quickly went to find the keys and grabbed a small fruit knife. After confirming there was no movement outside, she got into the car with her daughter. But just as she started the car,